Hey everybody, welcome back to my modern homestead. My name is Janet, just in case you're new here, and today I want to do a recipe that I'm so excited about. It's a recipe from my Aunt's song. If you saw the cucumbers we did, actually be the back that way for y'all. This is another one of her recipes that she would cook when I remember her doing her meals when I was at my grandmother's. So y'all stick around. That's going to be so delicious if I can get it to work. I'll tell you more about it again in a minute. But right now, we're going to make an herb butter. I'm so excited. We're going to use this on some fresh corn that, I just stuck my finger in it, that we just pulled out of the garden. What I'm doing is just dropping it down in a bowl, like so. And then we're going to chop up some fresh herbs. Some of them I got out of the garden, some of them I got out of the store. Let's take a look at what we've got. Oh, happy 4th of July. If this video works right, that's when y'all will be seeing this. But this is a basil, or these are basil leaves that I got out of the bed that you just saw my husband pick for me. This is a dark purple basil, and this is just regular old Genovese basil. But this is cilantro from the store. And y'all, I did corn the other night, and I rubbed it down with butter and cilantro, and some cheese. That was the best corn. So I figured if that was good, let's try this and see how it works. We're just going to chop up the herbs, and we're going to do these pretty finely. I'm going to chop my fingernails or fingers. And then we're going to chop this way. Wish I could smell them. Alright, to our butter, let's add about 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. And probably about that much garlic. Maybe a little less. Just a few pinches, we'll say. All right, and then we're going to take our herbs, drop those down in there on top of the butter. And don't use the blade side and scrape across your board. It'll dull your knife, so I've been told. Y'all, it's about to storm. I hope I can get through with this video. So now all we're going to do is just take a fork and mix this all up. This butter has been sitting out for a while, so it's nice and soft. And look how pretty. Hey Alyssa, can you hand me the corn real fast? Make sure you get it mixed up so you don't have all that salt and all the garlic in one spot in the butter. Alright. Now, hold on. She stuck it over here. Now she shucked all the corn for me, got all the silks out. And we're going to bake this until it's nice and warm. I'm going to pull off these ends that don't look so hot. But y'all, what a blessing it is to go to your garden, get your own produce, and cook it just as soon as you come in the house. Okay. So I just took a cookie sheet and I'm lined it with some parchment paper. We're going to put our corn on there just like this. And it doesn't need to cook long, just until it's warm, or you could boil it either way. And if you boil it, just boil it for about 5 minutes.
On to the cabbage.
Okay, now when I was trying to figure out how to make this, actually I just wanted to go and let her make it for me, my aunt's song. Because I don't think anybody can make it like my aunt's song. But I got to thinking, my goodness, I'm smarter than this problem. I can figure out what's in there. And so I tried to start thinking of all the things that I would put in it. And I said, wait a minute. Her daughter pretty much knows how to make it, which is my cousin, Elizabeth. So I messaged her, and she sent me the ingredients as close as she can get the recipe. And so I'm using Elizabeth's recipe of what she can remember her mama putting in the recipe. And Elizabeth said to use 1/4 of an onion, but I really want to use the green onions. So we're going to use those. And growing up, when we would ask Aunt Song to fix this, she said, "You want cabbagey?" She called it cabbagey. You know, because she's Korean, she still has a very strong accent. And when I was younger, I couldn't understand her. So sometimes I was embarrassed when I talked to her because I couldn't understand what she was saying. Because, you know, young kids, they don't really understand new accents. Goodness, a lot of people can't understand me. So let me rinse this off, and we're going to chop it up. Oh, and you know what? We need to chop some bell peppers. We need to rinse those off too. I'm not actually going to use bell peppers. We're going to use these from the garden because we only need, Elizabeth said, 1/4 of a bell pepper. That looks about like 1/4 of a bell pepper, right? Yeah. All right. We got the pepper rinsed. Let's chop it up. I'm not going to leave the seeds in it. Cut those out. Okay, let's get these chopped. And let me tell you about my Aunt Song. That woman, she could work. That was the hardest working woman I know. And not once would she complain. I never heard her complain about cooking. Never heard her complain about cooking. Cleaning. And I remember one time she was having trouble with people at her work because she went to work. And when she went to work, she went to do her work. And she would outwork everybody else. And the other people didn't like it because they wanted to be lazy. Isn't that crazy? So anyway, there's our peppers. And Elizabeth told me you can leave these vegetables out. But when I think of Aunt Song making these, I remember her using these vegetables, so I'm not leaving them out. And one thing Elizabeth didn't tell me to use was sesame seed and sesame oil. I may use those too. But right now that I've got those chopped, I'm going to chop this cabbage. And I also have 8 ounces of mushrooms that are already sliced. I'm not going to do any more slicing with those. We're going to leave them just like they are. So let's get this chopped up and we'll be right back. Goodness, y'all, this is a tender cabbage. Never in my life have I ever cut a cabbage this easily. It's going through there like butter. I'm not going to waste much of it. But I am going to leave some for the little piggies. Always when I do cabbage. Right, and just cut this up into little pieces. No certain size, just whatever you like. Just like that. Now as I'm chopping, I'm going to put the cabbage in the pan to get it out of our way because I picked up the little cutting board. And I don't want to mess up another cutting board just to chop cabbage. And a little tip to help you in the kitchen, when you get done chopping this cabbage, go ahead and clean up that area before you do anything else. That way it's clean when you're done cooking. There we go. All the cabbage is done. Ooh, and it just nearly filled up this pot. Might should have got the bigger one, but that's all right. It'll cook down. We'll just be careful until it does. So all I'm going to do is just clean up all these little bits of cabbage so it's nice and clean. Okay, let's add the other ingredients. Got the mushrooms. These were all nice and pretty when I bought them, but I couldn't ever get this recipe done. So I said, I'm doing it whether we eat it today or not. But guess what? It's going to be eaten today. Need about 1 tablespoon of butter. And I don't remember this ingredient, but I didn't necessarily ever pay attention to Aunt Song, so I'm going to trust Elizabeth, a teaspoon of sugar, a teaspoon of garlic powder, teaspoon of sugar, tablespoon of butter. Let's do, this says a 1/2 teaspoon of bouillon powder. Sorry, Elizabeth, I'm going to be a rebel. I'm doing at least 1 teaspoon. And she didn't tell me this one, as I said, sesame seeds. And I specifically remember Aunt Song dumping sesame seeds into her hand and pouring them over the pot. I'm guessing that was about a tablespoon. And like I said, we may add sesame oil later. And then we're going to fill water just about to the top of the cabbage. All right, let's add in the onions and the bell pepper. And one more thing. Elizabeth said to use 1/2 cup to 1 cup of soy sauce. She said, oh, this stuff is not going to do a thing if we don't turn it on. I'm going to put it on high. She said to add enough so that the water turns just about as dark as the soy sauce. And there's not even a 1/2 cup in here, so we're just going with it. And this is the less sodium. You could use liquid amino acids. That's what you prefer to use. So we're going to let this come up to a boil and stir it together while we're waiting. Oh, goodness gracious. And let me say too, I don't fault Elizabeth for not giving me the same ingredients I specifically remember, because now I know from my own cooking, recipes that you do can change over time because your family's needs and tastes also change. Your budgets change, so recipes just naturally change. And I just happened to remember the one time seeing Aunt Song, and that could have been a one-time thing, but I remember those sesame seeds being in there. And Elizabeth was a little bitty thing then, so she wouldn't have remembered. I mean, I guess she could have, but I don't even remember her being around when her mom was cooking it. But she's like a lot of adults, she just grows up and she's like, I want to make what Mama made, so we have to try to figure it out. I'm so appreciative that she shared with me. Aunt Song and my uncle live in my grandmother's house that they have remodeled, and it's at the base of Fort Mountain. I have such fond memories of that house, sitting there in the mornings, looking out the window, watching the fog lift off the mountain, listening to my grandmama's stories. Beautiful memories. Going to add just a little more water. Now that water's just about to the top of the cabbage, and that's the way Elizabeth said to do it. I hope Elizabeth doesn't watch. I don't want to make a mess of this recipe. She's precious for sharing it with me, and I want to do it justice. Okay, I just added about 3/4 of a teaspoon of garlic. I'm going to add about 2 more teaspoons of this broth base and seasonings, the beef flavor. And I added in more soy sauce to darken the liquid. So we're going to let it cook together and see how it tastes. I might add in a little bit more onion. So far it's looking good. Okay, I'm going to add in just a little bit of onion. And y'all, this is just one of those recipes. I'm not going to have a recipe for it. I can give you the basic ingredients, but it's just by taste. I'm just going to cut this end off, the root end. Just drop those down in there. Okay, this is at a boil. We're going to let it cook. Elizabeth said to turn it down to medium once it comes up to a boil, but if I turn my stove down, it's not going to cook at all. So I have to let mine just boil. But if your stove will let you turn it down and continue to boil, then turn it down to medium for 5 to 6 minutes, and then turn it down to low until it's done. And by done, I mean that the cabbage is tender. One thing I'm noticing that would change if I could do this again is only put in half of those mushrooms. I don't remember Aunt Song's cabbage having this many mushrooms, but it'll be okay. We're going to keep trying until we get this perfectly right. I can't wait until it cooks all together and we can taste it. Now, while the cabbage is cooking, I have 4 cups of water in this pan and 2 cups of rice. When the water comes up to a boil, I'll pour the rice in and then turn it down to low and let it cook for about 20 minutes or until the rice is done, because this is how you eat this cabbage. You have a big bowl of rice and then you put the cabbage over. Y'all, oh, the memories. I simply cannot wait. You can see it boiling. I remember watching this boil in the pan at Grandmama's. I did turn it down just a little bit. Can you see how pretty this is? This is a perfect vegan meal, a vegetarian, well, not with the beef broth, but if you used a different broth maybe. But, y'all. Going to add in just a few more sesame seeds. And then if we use sesame oil, I'm not going to do that until it's done. Okay, our water's boiling. So we're going to pour in the rice, stir it around. You know what I forgot? I didn't rinse that rice. Oh well. Going to turn it down and just let it cook for 20 minutes. The cabbage is coming along nicely, and if you eat meat and you would like to add meat to this meal, I remember Aunt Song making bulgogi or pugogi. I'm not sure. Hold on, I gotta sneeze. Sorry about that. I'm not sure. Maybe both are a thing. But I remember my young palate didn't like it, whatever it was. Maybe now I would, that my tastes have changed, but I didn't cook it tonight. I just wanted this. This is just about done. The rice is done, and we're waiting on the corn to get done. Now, let's just do the corn. All right. Now, let's rub the butter over the corn on this side and on the sides. Then we're going to take a little bit of this Mexican cheese and just sprinkle it over. Now, at this point, we're going to take the cob and put it on the plate and do the same thing to the other side. That way you have both sides of the corn seasoned. Okay, I have dished up some rice. Now let's get the cabbage. Okay. There we Doesn't that look good? Let's taste it. Okay, let's try it. Nervous. I need one thing. I sprinkled on just a little bit more soy sauce and want to do just a little bit of sesame oil. That smells right. Oh my goodness. Sorry, that's what was missing. It tastes like Aunt Song's.